How's going guys, welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with inner and outer Moka? Part 2. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. Naruto groaned as he sat cross-legged in the underground training ground. He placed a hand on his forehead and started to rub it in an effort to get rid of the migraine that he had gained. It had been 5 days since he'd started getting information compressed into him. It wasn't pretty. Sure, during those 5 days he'd eaten what was probably the healthiest food he had access to, but he'd barely slept at all. He was constantly up, constantly swallowing food pills to replenish his energy, and he was constantly having to rely on Kurama's chakra in order to keep his clones active. His eyes were only half open as he stared at the man he had more. Minato's arm was still missing from when Obito had ripped it off. He discarded his usual white cloak that had red flames at the bottom and instead was just wearing the uniform for usual Konoha Jonin. "Concentrate, Naruto," Minato ordered with a sigh. "But, Tsunade," he groaned once again and slumped onto his back. "I've barely slept these past 5 days, 3 hours to be exact. You can't possibly expect me to be able to actually concentrate on complex seals with that little sleep." "Yes, I can, actually." The Yondaime countered as he glanced around to see hundreds of Naruto and his own clones doing the same thing, only with different types of seals. "Look around you, your clones are doing just fine. They don't feel my physical stress," Naruto retorted without missing a beat. "You don't do much physical movement when it comes to seals, it's more of a mental thing." "Whatever." Naruto grumbled before sighing and sitting back up. "Naruto," said Jinchuriki's head whipped up at the serious tone of voice his father was using. "It's not just the lack of sleep that's getting to you, is it?" Naruto looked away with a frown before he sighed again. "There's things on my mind." "Like what?" "Like how I'm once again being hidden from an enemy," Naruto said as his frown turned into a scowl, obviously not happy with what he'd been ordered to do. "Yes, you are being hidden again," Minato agreed, having already heard about the giant turtle that Naruto was on with Arikage's brother. "But this time it's not to keep you out of the enemy's reach, this time it's so you can train and be ready for your next encounter." "Don't you mean compressing?" Naruto shot back and Minato's lips twitched upward slightly. "It doesn't matter what you call it, the point is that you need to get as strong as you possibly can in a short amount of time. Complaining about it won't help you either." Minato reached into his weapons pouch that was at the bottom of his back. "Tell you what, if you manage to learn all these seals today, then I'll teach you another of my jutsu." Naruto arched an eyebrow as his father slowly and deliberately brought his arm back in front of him to reveal a tri-pronged kunai, something that made Naruto gain a grin. "Are you serious?" Seeing his father nod, Naruto's grin widened. "Alright. I guess I'll learn the seals today then." Minato gave a similar, albeit smaller grin, as he saw his only child's energy come back from the dead. "That's the spirit. Well then, everyone, this academy's goal is to train yokai to adapt to human society, just as I've been saying all along. So that means starting today you're all going to take up club activities." Naruto was sitting in his usual seat for homeroom with Tsukun next to him and Moka behind him. His elbow was on the desk in front of him, while his chin was rested in his palm with a bored expression on his face, something that the blonde had during most of the classes he attended. Though he did gain some interest in what Nekonim was saying when she had mentioned club activities. He'd never heard of such a thing before, so he was actually looking forward to whatever it was. It didn't seem Tsukun was in the same mindset though. Club activities? At a school for yokai? The black-haired human gulped slightly. What kind of weird stuff are they going to have at this place that counts as an activity? Naruto internally sighed and rolled his eyes without even bothering to look at the other human. He could feel Tsukun's anxiousness through his negative emotion sensing ability that he had thanks to Kurama. Tsukun really needs to relax more. Constantly freaking out like he does can't possibly be healthy. If you feel the need to comment on it, then do something about him freaking out as you put it. Kurama suddenly spoke up. "And what do you expect me to be able to do? He already knows that I won't let anyone hurt him," Naruto pointed out. "I'm sure he does know that, but that's not the problem." Kurama shuffled around on his spot and rested his chin on his human-like hand. "It's easy to tell what he needs, really. Almighty and all-knowing Kurama-sama, please indulge me with your infinite wisdom in what my human friend needs," Naruto drawled with a roll of his eyes. Kurama ignored his obvious sarcasm. "Self-confidence. How can I give him something like that?" "You can't." The Biju replied bluntly, but continued before Naruto could interrupt. "You can't give someone confidence in themselves, you can only help them get it." "And how do I do that?" "You can teach him how to fight and use chakra, for one." Naruto glanced at Tsukun out of the corner of his eyes to see the human still seemed apprehensive. "That's a good idea, but he has so little chakra. If I was to train him I'd have to do something like that to boost his chakra reserves, and we both know how much that can hurt." True, that would hurt him physically and mentally, but it would also stop you from complaining about him freaking out. I wasn't complaining. Naruto huffed, getting a weird look from Tsukun, who had been able to calm himself down. Why do you care about Tsukun so much, anyway? I don't, but you seem to have gotten attached to him and the vampire. Maybe you're just getting soft. He pointedly ignored the indignant grunt. Sensei. Naruto's eyes went from the front of the class, where he had been staring blankly while speaking to Kurama, over to a student who had his hand raised. What is it? Wouldn't that give you an F in that case, sensei? The student pointed out as his index finger was directly aimed at the tail that was showing under Nekonom's skirt. Nekonom let out a roar that sounded more like an angry meow as she suddenly appeared in front of the student and started to claw at his face. Naruto's sweat dropped at the sight before shaking his head and sighing. I must have missed some of Nekonom-sensei's speech or something, Kurama, I blame you for this. The Biju deliberately ignored him. Naruto's eye twitched. Anyway, everyone has to participate in club activities. Nekonom announced, ignoring the student who was crying comically with scratches all over his face. So please visit many different groups and decide on which one you want to join, and be sure to check out the newspaper club that I'm the advisor for. Dismissed. Naruto got up out of his chair, as did everyone else in the room, before looking behind him to where Moka usually sat to see the vampire standing and actually looking excited. Are you ready, Naruto-kun, Tsukun-kun? Naruto nodded at the excited vampire with a smile. Yeah, it should be interesting. Well then, let's go. Moka cheered as she grabbed both boys' arms in an iron grip and hauled them out the door. Naruto didn't seem bothered by the grip on his arm. Tsukun though winced slightly at the grip the girl had on his arm but didn't comment on it. Moka-san sure has a lot of strength. How the hell are we supposed to move through that? Naruto muttered as he took in the sight of what had become the corridors of Yokai Academy. There was stands, signs and students everywhere. So much so that Naruto couldn't even see the ground without seeing 3 other students' shoes. You know, I have no clue, but it's kind of amazing, really, Tsukun remarked. Yeah, it is. Moka agreed as she let go of both boys' arms, much to the black-haired human's relief. So do either of you have any ideas for what club we should join? Tsukun hummed slightly in thought while Naruto just kept looking around with some curiosity etched on his face. An idea popped into Tsukun's head, but he forcefully pushed it away with a small blush on his face. I don't know, Moka-san. Tsukun finally said after a small silence. Naruto hadn't suggested anything because he didn't know what clubs there could be. We'll just have to look around and try to find something that all of us like. Moka nodded her head as all 3 of them started to push their way through the crowd of students to look for a suitable club to join. Unfortunately, everyone tending the stand seemed to take a liking to Moka, and on multiple occasions, Tsukun had to calm the blonde down enough so he didn't massacre everyone that was in that club. Though he did let Naruto kick that one creepy guy that asked Moka to do nude pictures through a wall. Naruto huffed and stuffed his hands in his pockets as he finished glaring an entire club into submission. You know, if you keep giving everyone that tries to get Moka-san into their club that look, there isn't going to be any clubs left. Tsukun commented with some amusement as he watched his friend twitch. Moka was walking in front of them with her hands behind her back, oblivious to both the stares she received and the 2 humans' conversation. Naruto grumbled slightly as he gained control of his twitch. I'm not going to do that to every club I see, just the ones I can sense ill intent towards Moka-chan coming from. You can sense someone's intentions? Tsukun asked in surprise. No, not someone's intentions. Naruto said with a shake of his head. I can sense negative emotions. So someone with positive intentions won't show up for me, but someone who intends to do something negative will. That's handy. The brown-eyed human noted. Before Naruto could continue the conversation, he was interrupted by a woman's voice. Hello boys, I'm the swimming club captain and a second year here at Yokai Academy, Ichinis Tamao. Would the 2 of you like to join me for a swim? The 2 boys, as well as Moka, who had stopped walking in front and was now standing next to them, looked over to see a woman with turquoise-colored hair and yellow eyes. The woman was wearing a white long-sleeved button-up shirt that was left open to reveal a 2-piece swimsuit, and she also had sandals on her feet and a hand on her left hip. Behind Tamao were a few other girls from the swimming club also wearing 2-piece swimsuits, and they were waving to all of the other males in the vicinity, while said males shouted about how they wanted to join the club. Naruto shrugged, not really caring. He didn't really have a need to swim, nor even learn how to, he could just simply walk across water. Besides that, swimming didn't interest him anyway, not as an activity at least. But, what is this I can feel coming from her? It's hard to describe, it almost feels like she's hungry, but not for food. Tsukun on the other hand seemed to be interested in the club. Whether that was because of all the women wearing swimsuits or not, Naruto would never know. Naruto-san, Moka-san, I'm going to try the club for a while, you 2 don't have to if you don't want to though. Well, what about you, Naruto-kun? Tamao all but purred his name, something that caused Moka to get a small twitch in her eye. Nah, I'm fine. Naruto replied with a casual smile as he glanced at an obviously uncomfortable Moka, as Tamao frowned slightly. Swimming doesn't interest me much, sorry. Oh come on, you won't know until you at least try it. Tamao's frown turned into a small grin as the girls that were behind her all but pounced on the ninja and started ripping his clothes off. It was an almost comical sight as the girls forcefully changed Naruto into a pair of swimming shorts, with his limbs flailing about the entire time. Sukun's sweat dropped at the display while Moka blushed and tried not to stare at the blonde who was now standing in his previous spot in just a pair of black swimming shorts. Naruto wrapped his arms around himself and shivered slightly. I feel violated. Sukun's sweat drop grew in size before Tamao pointed to the human who was still wearing the academy uniform. Girls, get him. Sukun yelped as the girls that had forcefully changed Naruto without actually damaging his clothes turned their sights on him, with their eyes gleaming before they pounced on him. It was Naruto and Moka's turn to sweat drop this time, as the girls repeated what they did to the blonde to the now spluttering and cursing human. The girls moved away from Tsukun who was now wearing similar shorts to Naruto, while said human inched towards the shinobi, otherwise known as the safe zone. I know what you feel, Naruto-san. Well, playtime's over. Naruto sighed before grabbing his clothes that had been stacked in a neat pile on the floor. Do you still want to stay, Tsukun? Yeah, I'll still give it a shot even if they are a bit forceful, Tsukun mumbled and Naruto snorted at the understatement. Owatomato pouted at the blonde and crossed her arms under her fists, pushing them up slightly. You really sure don't want to swim, Naruto-kun? I'm sure, Tama-senpai. Naruto replied as he placed a hand on Moka's shoulder. I guess we'll see you later, Tsukun. The black-haired human nodded and waved to his two friends as they both disappeared, leaving several swirling leaves in their place. What was that? Tamao asked but got a shrug from Tsukun, so she latched onto his arm with a smile on her face. Oh well, let's forget about them. Let's get to swimming already. Tsukun blushed as his arm was held in between Tamao's cleavage as she dragged him towards the swimming pool, oblivious to the glares he was getting from other students around him. No one even noticed the slight shimmer of light that came from around the corner. Naruto and Moka reappeared inside of Naruto's dorm room with a few leaves swirling around them. Moka looked around the room in confusion, not knowing where they were. The room had a dark gray carpet with plain, white walls. A futon was in the corner of the room with a wardrobe a few feet away from it. On the other side of the room was a small kitchen with wooden floorboards, while near it was a white closed door. Naruto-kun, where are we? Moka asked as she tried to get rid of the slightly dizzy feeling she had. We're in my room. Naruto replied nonchalantly as he walked up to his wardrobe and grabbed a new set of school clothes out of it. Why are we here? The vampire asked nervously. I need a new set of clothes to wear, these ones he gestured to the academy's attire that he had been wearing earlier before he threw them on his futon. Just feel dirty, I'll have to thoroughly wash them later, she sweat dropped at the weird reason, but didn't comment on it. Anyway, make yourself at home while I go get dressed. Moka nodded as Naruto went through the door that was near the kitchen. The vampire stood in the same spot for a few moments, not really knowing what to do. I'm in Naruto-kun's room, she thought as her face started to heat up at the realization before she decided to take a seat on his futon and wait for him. I kinda thought that his room would be messy, but it's not. Naruto came out of the room he had been in a minute later, wearing the usual attire for males at Yokai Academy, blazer and all. Alright, there. Now I just have to remember to wash those. The blonde cast a distasteful glance towards the clothes that had all been ripped off of him by the forceful girls, before he turned back to the vampire with a smile. Well, anyway, are you ready to search for a club again? The vampire nodded as she got off of his futon, and he placed a hand on her shoulder before the both of them once again disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Dude, did you hear? Apparently Moka-san is joining the swimming club. What? Really? Yeah, everyone's saying that Tamao-senpai invited her and her two friends to join. Two of Moka-san's friends. Wouldn't they be the two guys who are always with her? The two students who had been walking down the hallway and talking to each other started grumbling and cursing the two humans with some rather colorful language. A certain succubus happened to be walking down the same hallway in the opposite direction of the students, and she overheard what they had said. Moka-san is joining the swimming club with two friends. That must mean that Tsukun is joining the club as well. Kurumu smiled as she added a little spring to her step before she stopped with a confused frown appearing on her face. I didn't think that vampires were able to even touch water though. Tsukun gulped slightly with a blush on his face, while Tamao was behind him holding his arms and showing him how to use them to get more speed while swimming. He could literally feel her impressive wrists pushing up against his back as she instructed him, a fact that made his blush all the worse. Yeah, just like that. Tamao praised as she guided his arms in the right position. You're doing great, Tsukun-kun. It's really heating up here, Tsukun thought in a slight daze. Alright, Tsukun-kun. How about going for a few laps around the pool? Tamao suggested with what seemed to be a sweet smile, getting a nod out of the human as he started to swim with his senior next to him. Tamao-senpai really has a mature charm, doesn't she? A student off to the side remarked as he kicked his feet under the water to stay afloat with his friends around him. Forget that, I want to know where Moka-sen is, I'd heard that she was joining this club. One of the other students said. You really shouldn't listen to rumors, you know. Ah, shut up. The student grumbled before glaring at the form of Tsukun, who was still swimming alongside Tamao. Anyway, I really feel like killing that guy and that bastard Naruto as well for hanging out with Moka-san. The students around him mumbled in agreement while Tsukun started to sweat slightly at what they had said. I really wish my safe zone was here right now. Naruto sneezed as he stopped walking through the hallway that he and Moka had been going through on their search for a club to join. Some bastard must be talking about me, he grumbled, getting a weird look from the vampire. Come on Naruto-kun, don't stop now, we still have to find a club we can all join. Moka puffed her cheeks out in slight annoyance and crossed her arms. Yeah, I know. Sorry, Moka-chan. Naruto said as the two started walking again. I don't know if Tsukun will join the club that we do though, he seemed to be interested in the swimming club. The pincat hummed in agreement. Yeah, he did seem interested, but that's alright. If he joins the swimming club, then at least the two of us will still be together. Naruto nodded his head as his eyes scanned around the hallway for a suitable club to join, oblivious to the blush that had come upon the vampire's face as the word together reverberated through her mind. Naruto-kun, Moka-san. The two teens who had their names called out stopped walking and turned around to see their homeroom teacher, Nekonim, approaching them with a smile on her face. Hey, Nekonim-sensei. Moka greeted with a smile while Naruto sent a nod to the teacher. What is it? Well, I was just wondering if either of you two had found a club to join yet. Naruto and Moka shared a glance before Naruto spoke up. No, we haven't yet, sensei, but we're looking for one right now. Nekonim smiled brightly at the tad bit of information as her tone became more cheerful than before. Great. Then how about the two of you join the newspaper club? Aren't you the advisor for that club, sensei? Naruto inquired as he vaguely remembered her mentioning something like that in homeroom earlier that day. Nekonim nodded her head with her smile still in place. Yep, sure am. Naruto hummed slightly in thought as he mulled it over. On one hand, the club sounded perfect for gathering information, something that he admitted would be useful in a school for yokai. On the other hand, if he guessed correctly, then the newspaper club was more than likely boring and something that he wouldn't be very interested in. I don't know, sensei. We'll have to think about it and speak to Tsukun as well as Kurumu-san, I suppose. Naruto said after a short silence. That's fine, I didn't expect you to come to a decision straight away. Nekonim waved off, her smile not faltering in the slightest. She had two potential candidates for the club, for if she included Tsukun and Kurumu, so she was happy. Anyway, I need to get back to my duties, I just asked because I saw you walking down the hallway. Okay, we'll see you another time then, Nekonim-sensei. Moka waved to their homeroom teacher as said woman walked away from them. She turned back to Naruto, only to find the blonde had frozen in his spot with a frown on his face. What's wrong, Naruto-kun? Naruto didn't reply vocally, instead he just placed a hand on the middle of her back. At first Moka thought he was going to use the same high-speed movement technique that he'd been using recently, but it was different this time. Instead of disappearing with a sudden immense speed, she found herself literally being teleported from her spot without a trace. Tsukun frowned as he rested against the side of the swimming pool he was in. He had told Tamao that he was taking a short break to gain some energy back, but in all reality he felt his interest in the club deterring. It just wasn't what he'd hoped it would be. Maybe it would have been better if Naruto-san and Moka-san were here. He thought before noticing the swimming club captain making her way over to him. Come on Tsukun-kun, you should be well rested by now. The woman stated with a smile. Tsukun scratched at his cheek with his right index finger before he bowed to the captain slightly. I'm sorry about this senpai, but I think it's about time that I leave to go and find my friends. Tamao's smile widened slightly, but instead of being a sweet smile, it was a cruel smile, and one that radiated a certain hunger. Well then let me apologize myself. Tsukun-kun, her hand slowly reached out towards Tsukun's cheek and it became webbed while her face split into a grin, revealing her now jagged teeth that were in 3 rows. Because I'm going to have to drain you of your life source. Tsukun recoiled away from the captain and used his hands to push himself away from her, with his eyes wide open in shock. Before he could even form any words in his mouth, he heard a panicked shout come from the other side of the pool, followed by many others. Stop it. Why are you suddenly coming after me, senpai? Sukun looked around the pool for where the shouts had come from to see the one of male students who had been mumbling threats about him being chased by girls with a similar face to what Tamao's had turned into with tails behind them. The girls easily caught up to the student they were chasing and bit into him, causing him to age rapidly until he was nothing but an old man. "What the hell is this?" Sukun exclaimed, his heartbeat was racing as he stared in shock at what had happened before Tamao's voice reached his ears once again. "This is what we mermaids do." An orange tail similar to the other ones appeared behind her from out of the water. "We lure men into the water and suck their life away, it's our natural way of life. So don't think too badly of us, Sukun-kun." She dived into the water as Sukun tried to get as far away from her as possible before she launched upwards into the air, revealing her entire body. "It's wonderful, don't you think?" "They're mermaids," Sukun thought in a panic as the other mermaids in the pool had large smiles on their faces as they chased the other students with the intention of sucking their life force to nearly nothing. "Don't worry, we won't drain you of your entire life force." A mermaid cried cheerfully with a hungry grin as she and the others chased a group of students who were doing their best to get away. "Yeah, you don't have to worry, besides it's useless to resist us." Another exclaimed with an equally hungry grin. "Are mermaids really this scary?" Sukun gulped as he quickened his pace to the edge of the pool. I'm really gonna be killed here." Before the human could reach his destination, two arms wrapped around his neck from behind, while two priests pushed up against his back. "There's no need for you to panic, Sukun-kun." Tamao purred into his ear as she tightened her grip around him slightly. "You're special, you see. I've actually had my eyes on both you and Naruto-kun since the entrance ceremony." Her webbed hand came up and caressed the petrified human's cheek. "You two have such a yummy smell, it's just like a human's." Sukun was frozen in the spot as Tamao opened her mouth as if she was ready to eat his entire body. "I've always wanted to eat one of you." Tamao's mouth went to devour the human, but just before the mermaid's mouth could latch onto Tsukun, a fist appeared out of nowhere and smashed straight into Tamao's face and sent her away from him. "I really can't have just a single normal day, can I?" Tsukun looked up with surprise and relief clearly on his face as he saw Naruto standing on the water with a tri-pronged kunai held firmly in his right hand. "Naruto-san?" Sukun exclaimed. "Wait a minute, how the hell are you doing that?" Naruto turned his head around to glance at his friend and saw his fellow human looking straight towards his feet that were keeping him on the water. "Now's not exactly the time to be explaining things like that, Sukun," Naruto remarked dryly before turning his head back around to face Tamao and the other mermaids who had finished with the others. "Just get out of the pool and let me handle this." Sukun nodded frantically, glad that his friend had come for him as he swam the rest of the way to the edge of the pool to get out. "Oh, it seems you've come to join us, Naruto-kun." Tamao grinned that same hungry grin that the other mermaids mirrored with ease as she ignored the place where she had been hit. "But, what do you intend to do? Surely you don't mean to fight us, mermaids are invincible in water, after all." Naruto shrugged nonchalantly as he pocketed a tri-pronged kunai. "I've fought people who thought themselves to be invincible before, so you're probably not much different." "Is that so?" Tamao and the other mermaids started swimming towards him at a fast pace. "Then prove it." Naruto waited patiently on the water's surface as the mermaids got closer and closer to him. It seemed that Tamao was the faster out of the mermaids as she was the first one to get close to the blonde. She lunged out of the water straight at him. But Naruto simply moved out of the way and grabbed her tail with one hand before spinning her around and using her as a pseudo-bat to hit all of the other mermaids that had lunged at him moments later away. Sukun's mouth opened and closed in bewilderment at the sight. "He's just toying with them as if they're not even worth his time," the black-haired human realized as he witnessed the shinobi basically play baseball with mermaids, while a casual, if not bored expression was firmly planted on his face. Kurumu, who was standing beside the human, had her eyebrows in her hairline from surprise, while mirth was easily seen in her eyes. Moka stood beside Kurumu and was just as surprised as the succubus, but rather than be amused at what she was seeing, she was more fascinated and amazed at how easily he dealt with supposedly invincible foes. "You know, I thought this school was going to actually be dangerous for you," Kurama commented with an amused smirk that showed off his giant and glistening teeth just as his partner batted another mermaid away with his senior's body. "Well, you never know, this place could actually get dangerous," Naruto responded, gripping Tamao's tail a bit firmer. She was absolutely powerless in this situation, water was right next to her and yet she couldn't even touch it. Moka-chan, or the other Moka-chan at least, had a large amount of what did the creepy headmaster call it? Yuki. Yeah, she had a lot of it from what I was able to sense when she was released, so it's safe to say that there's a lot stronger people out there than what I've faced so far. The blonde sighed as he smashed Tamao's body into the last mermaid and sent it flying out of the pool area. "Alright, time to finish this up, Tama-senpai." "What are you going to do?" she asked apprehensively as she attempted to get rid of the sick feeling that she had. Nothing you need to worry about, all you need to know is that you'll still be alive after this. Naruto replied nonchalantly before jumping high into the air. Alright senpai, please try not to vomit on this ride and remember to keep your seatbelt on at all times. Naruto chuckled to himself before he began to spin Tamau's body in midair. Ah, forget that last comment, this ride doesn't have any seatbelts. Sorry, but passenger safety isn't exactly on my mind right now. Naruto stopped his light chuckles and let go of his senior's body before landing a hard kick in her face that sent her rocketing towards the pool. Tamau's unconscious body collided with the water, sending a large amount of the crystal clear liquid out of the pool and drenching Tsukun, while Moka and Kurumu managed to only get slightly wet since they had jumped back. The perfectly dry Naruto landed at the edge of the pool and looked around before nodding to himself in satisfaction as he saw all of the mermaids were unconscious and probably wouldn't be getting up anytime soon. Naruto-kun. The shinobi turned around to see a half-smiling half-wincing Moka running up to him. Hey Moka-chan, what's wrong? Naruto asked in concern as the vampire stopped in front of him while Tsukun and Kurumu made their way up to them with the latter latched onto the former's arm. It's nothing to worry about, it's just that water zaps away a vampire's strength. But don't worry, it doesn't hurt that much since I didn't get a lot of water on me. Naruto frowned at her reply before he grabbed a nearby towel and started drying off the water that had gotten onto her body, much to the Pinkette's embarrassment. I do worry though, Moka-chan. Naruto said as he continued his task. If I had have known that water did that to vampires, then I wouldn't have thrown Tamao-senpai into the pool like that. So, I'm sorry. It's fine, like I said, I didn't get that much water on me, so it doesn't hurt that much. Moka said as the pain from having water touching her body slowly faded away. There. All the water is gone. Naruto threw the towel away before he noticed the succubus that seemed to have an iron grip on Tsukun's arm. Kurumu-san. When did you get here? Ah, just after you started fighting those mermaids, Naruto-kun. Kurumu replied with a smile as Moka leaned into Naruto's side. Despite not having had much water on her, it still took her energy away and she was feeling tired. I heard that Moka-san and two friends had been invited to join this club, so I thought I'd come over to see my destined one. Naruto nodded at the succubus's answer as he wrapped an arm around Moka's shoulder to keep her steady, while Tsukun decided to ask what was on his mind. How did you know that I was in danger? It can't have possibly been a coincidence that you were here just when I was being attacked by those mermaids. I told you earlier today that I could sense negative emotions, Tsukun. Naruto said with a shrug, not wanting to tell the human that he'd actually created a clone, while said clone had used the Misegakur no Jutsu to hide its presence and used the Hiraishin to teleport him there. I just sensed fear coming from this area so I came as soon as possible. Tsukun seemed to accept the answer, so he asked another question. Well, have Moka-san and you found a club to join yet, Naruto-san? Well, I suppose you could say that. Naruto admitted, gaining an inquisitive look from the human. Moka-chan and I were going to speak to you and Kurumu-san about it first though. The succubus and human nodded and Naruto took it as a signal to keep forming words with his mouth. It's the newspaper club that Nekonim-sensei is the advisor for. It doesn't matter what club I join, so long as Tsukun is in it I'm fine. Kurumu said cheerfully as she shifted the arm she was latched onto in between her cleavage, causing said human's face to get set aflame, much to Naruto's amusement. We can go and speak to Nekonim-sensei about it tomorrow. Naruto glanced at the vampire that was leaning on him with half-opened eyes. I should probably get Moka-chan to her room so that she can rest, that water seems to have taken more energy out of her than she'd like to admit. Tsukun and Kurumu nodded in agreement as Naruto disappeared with leaves falling around where he once was. It's actually kinda cool how he can disappear like that. Kurumu commented. Yeah, but it's a completely different story when he does that to you. Tsukun forcefully pushed the memories of him vomiting on multiple occasions when Naruto had used that technique on him. Though, Naruto-san did say that you can get used to it. Once again, Naruto was underground in the training ground, but with two differences. One was that there was a large pool of water off to the side that looked big enough to fit a small army, while the other was instead of his father training him, it was Tsunade. Probably the best choice for the compressing session he was about to go through though. Takra controlled the elder blonde stressed the words heavily, as if she was trying to burn them into his brain for eternity. Is what you need over most other things right now. Unfortunately in your case, the control over the chakra you have is pathetic at best, compared to what you can achieve. I know that already, just tell me what I need to do. Naruto snapped. The relationship between the two had started to deteriorate ever since the Hokage had ordered Naruto to go into hiding to get information compressed into him, all but making him a weapon in order to take down Obito. To Naruto, it felt as if she had lost faith in him. Tsunade frowned and closed her eyes, hiding the regret that she felt for putting Naruto under all the stress that was on him. But it was something that she felt was necessary. Something that needed to be done. It wasn't the fact that she had lost faith in him that she made him do this, it was because she had faith in him. She had faith that he would beat Obito and save their world, but faith alone wouldn't kill the Jubi's Jinchuriki. Tsunade's expression became stern and as cold as ice once again when she opened her eyes. How many clones can you make to train with, Naruto? According to Kurama, I'm able to create 500 clones to train with. I can last roughly 16 hours straight without any food pills or the use of Kurama's chakra. Good, I want you to create. Tsunade was interrupted by a large explosion of smoke from behind her fellow blonde, while said shinobi had his hands in a familiar cross-hate hand seal. Alright, 250 of you will go to that pool of water and jump in. I want all of you to regulate your chakra outside of your body and try to stay dry, treat it like a cloak covering your entire body and protecting you from the water. There was some pushing and shoving in the small army of clones as they tried to get to said pool of water as fast as they could and do as they were ordered. What about the rest of them? The one at the front and most likely the original asked. The rest of you, as well as the original Naruto, are to continue mastering the Rasengan until you can do it without the help of your clones. Tsunade ordered as the clones did as they were told. The original Naruto though, frowned and walked up to the Senju. That's it? That's the chakra control exercises you're giving me? Naruto gritted his teeth slightly. I may sound like an asshole, but I honestly expected more than that. Those are some of the most advanced chakra control techniques there are. Tsunade shot back, frowning just as much as he was. Both should be obvious as to why, too. The first one I gave the half of your clones is similar to the water walking method, only it's around your entire body instead of just at the soles of your feet. You being able to use the Rasengan is a chakra control method as well, seeing as keeping control of chakra that's spinning so much like that is extremely difficult. Naruto sighed but nodded his head before he began walking over to the group of clones that were attempting to create a Rasengan with one hand. Naruto sighed as he stuffed his hands in the pockets of his gym shorts with a completely bored expression. Next to him, Sukun rolled his brown eyes in slight exasperation. The two, along with multiple other male students, were standing on one end of a basketball court that was in a large hall that was used for gym class. It had wooden floorboards, concrete walls and a thin tin roof. Like most buildings found in Yokai Academy though, the inside was very different from the outside. Naruto had spoken to Nekonim just the day before and informed her that he along with Tsukun, Kurumu and Moka would be joining the newspaper club, much to her glee. In front of the group of about 16 males was their gym teacher, Akuto Kitsubo. He had dark red hair, slight stubble on his chin, and was holding a ball made of foam under his right arm. Alright, today we'll be playing a little game known as Dodgeball. Kitsubo announced, unknowingly gaining Naruto's full attention as he'd never heard of the game before. Dodgeball is a popular game played in the human world, so you can also think of this as more preparation for coexisting with humans if you wish. Dodgeball, really? Sukun muttered as he mirrored the blonde's actions from before by stuffing his hands in the pockets of his own gym shorts. What's wrong, Sukun? Naruto asked, glancing at the only other human in Yokai Academy while he tried to listen into Kitsubo's explanation of the rules and how it was played. Nothing, really, Tsukun mumbled as he suppressed a small shiver. It's just that playing dodgeball with a bunch of yokai isn't going to be very easy for me. Hey, you're not scared, are ya? Naruto teased, lightly nudging the boy with his elbow, but sighed when Tsukun looked away. Fine, then just make sure we're on the same team and stay close to me, okay? Tsukun nodded as he tried to force down the images of him getting splattered against a wall from being hit by one of the foam balls. Alright, now for teams. Kitsubo trailed off as he started pointing to different students. The 8 of you go over the other side of the court. You're one team. Tsukun sighed in some relief as neither he or Naruto had been one of the students to be picked for the other team. The rest of you, line up at this side of the court. Oh, and don't forget that you aren't permitted to use anything related to your true forms. Some of the students grumbled to themselves as they got into the spots they were told to go to, while Kitsubo placed 8 foam balls directly across the middle of the court. This should be fun. Naruto rubbed his hands together with a small grin as he stood on his respective side of the court. I just hope I don't die, Tsukun mumbled. The blonde shinobi rolled his eyes. You need to relax more, Tsukun. Besides, I'm here so you're not going to die. Okay, everyone ready? No one answered the gym teacher and instead moved into a position as if they were going to run a sprint. Kitsubo put a whistle in his mouth as he raised his right arm in the air while glancing at both sides to make sure that no one would cheat. Seeing that everyone was ready, he dropped his arms as he blew on the whistle, signaling the start of the match. Even without having to use chakra, Naruto was still extremely fast for a human that existed in the world or timeline, whatever it was. So it wasn't really much of a surprise to him that as soon as the whistle had been blown, he rocketed off from his spot faster than any of the other yokai in the room could move, while restricted to their human forms. Sukun just grunted as he sprinted alongside the yokai on his team. He wasn't particularly slow, but he wasn't fast either. He was just average, really. Naruto picked up the first foam ball in his reach before pelting it at the yokai on the other team, who had yet to reach the halfway line. The ball flew through the air until it impacted with a student's chest with enough force to send him sprawling backwards, while the foam ball rolled away from him. That's one down, Naruto thought as the other students finally reached the halfway line and grabbed the foam balls in their reach before backpedaling and hurling them at the other team. Sukun caught a ball that had been sent straight for his face in both of his hands and skidded back slightly from the strength that was put into the throw, causing the student who threw the ball to grumble as he made his way off of the court. Tetsubo watched on the sidelines with slight amusement in his eyes as the two teams tried to hit anyone on the opposing team with the foam balls as hard as they could. Naruto shifted his body to the side in order to dodge a foam ball that had been hurled at him before casually jogging up to a foam ball that was nearby and picking it up. He glanced around at both teams and saw that the other team had 4 people left, while his own team had 5 including Tsukun and himself. "Come on Naruto, you can't lose this." Naruto quietly murmured to himself as he gripped the foam ball firmly before hurling it at a student on the opposite side, only for said student to dodge, albeit barely. "Speaking to yourself is the first sign of insanity, you know," Kurama remarked dryly. Naruto stumbled slightly and only just dodged a foam ball that was soaring straight for his head. "Why do you feel the need to comment on things I do or say at the most random times?" "Mostly boredom," Kurama admitted, and Naruto twitched as he picked another ball up off of the court before hurling it at another student on the opposite team, hitting said yokai in between his eyes and sending him sprawling. "Well, can you not? You almost caused me to get sent off the court." Naruto huffed while Kurama gave an amused grin, silently musing that he should annoy his partner more often just to get a reaction out of him. "Naruto-san, look out." So caught up in his conversation with Kurama, Naruto didn't even see the foam ball coming straight for the side of his head. His instincts took over as he heard Tsukun's shout and he sent wind chakra into his right arm before slashing horizontally, effectively shredding the foam ball into pieces and sending its contents all over the floor. The shinobi scratched the back of his head sheepishly as the other students, minus Tsukun, let out groans. "Sorry about that, I just kind of reacted." Tetsubo's mouth formed a thin line. "Uzumaki, you're out. I suggest you go back to your dorm for the rest of the day so you don't react like that again." "Ugh. Hey, Naruto-kun." Moka greeted cheerfully as she ran up to her blonde friend before wrapping her arms around his neck and sinking her fangs into his neck while Naruto held her waist to keep her steady. As usual, when Moka drank his blood, she relaxed into his arms and pushed her body more against his own. "If I didn't have Kurama with me, this girl would have drained me dry of my life force already. Well, technically chakra is my life force as well, but that's not the point." Naruto thought as Moka kept happily sucking on his blood, which was regenerating just as fast as she was gulping it down. "You really are going insane. You're not just speaking to yourself out loud anymore. You're talking to yourself in your own thoughts." "Shut it, furball." The blonde ignored the protests of the prideful Biju. "Hey, look at that, Tsukun. You don't think that Moka will drain Naruto-kun of all his blood, do you?" The distinctly amused and actually slightly concerned voice of Kurumu came from behind Naruto. Moka heard what the succubus had said as well and removed her fangs from his neck with a blush, either from satisfaction like usual or embarrassment, Naruto would never know. Naruto let Moka out of his grip as she untied her arms from his neck and turned around to face the approaching human and succubus. Kurumu was latched onto Tsukun's arm, pushing said limb in between her fists, while Tsukun's blush could have made the sun jealous of how bright it was. I don't know, Kurumu-chan," Tsukun murmured. "But Naruto-san doesn't seem to mind no matter how much she drinks, so I don't think so." "Well, anyway," Naruto started in an attempt to change the conversation from Moka sucking his blood. "We're starting the newspaper club today." "Yeah, that's right. I wonder who else is in the club though," Tsukun wondered as the 4 of them started walking in the direction of the school. "Who knows, but whoever it is can't be that bad, right? Nekonom-sensei is the advisor for it after all," Naruto stated. "Along with the other 2, Moka nodded in agreement. "We'll just have to see when we get there." The 4 of them were each seated at desks in the front row of the newspaper club's room. Moka was seated at the left of them all with Naruto on her right, and to the right of the shinobi was Tsukun, while Kurumu was at the opposite end of the pinket. At the front of the room, standing behind a desk was their club's advisor, while said woman had a smile on her face, with her eyes squinted behind her glasses as usual. "Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for joining my club," Nekonom announced just as chirpily as ever. "Now let's begin the club activities for the Yokai Academy newspaper club." Sensei, Naruto started a bit awkwardly as he placed both of his arms on the desk in front of him while shuffling in his seat slightly. "We're not the only people in this club, right?" A small club with just the 4 of them would have been fine in Naruto's opinion, then he wouldn't have to put up with any of the students that relied solely on their hormones. Don't be silly, Naruto-kun. Nekonom's smile widened when she heard a shout of "excuse me" come from just outside the door, drawing everyone's attention to it. Ah, here's the only other member here now. The door slid open to reveal a male wearing the standard uniform, minus the tie. He had ink black hair held back by a red headband, along with a pair of red-violet eyes that went over to the 2 girls that were in the room aside from Nekonom. A charming smile adorned his features as he held 2 bouquets of flowers in his hands while he greeted them with a distinctly Asukan accent. "I'm the president of this newspaper club, Yokai A. It's great to meet ya." Naruto suppressed a small shiver as he saw Jin's teeth sparkle. "Why do Lee and Guy-sensei have to come into my mind right now?" he internally wailed, much to Kurama's silent amusement. When Naruto had come back to reality, he noticed that Jin was right in front of Moka and Kurumu, with the flowers held out to the 2 girls. "Ah, Nekonom-sensei told me about the 2 of you, but she never mentioned how beautiful the 2 of you are." The succubus and vampire sat there a bit awkwardly as they accepted the flowers and placed them on the desks they were sitting behind. "You can just call me Jin. At least his personality isn't like Guy-sensei or Lee," though Naruto thought as Jin went back to the front of the class and stood next to the club's advisor. As he said before, this is Jin-kun, the club's president and the only second-year club member. Naruto wasn't completely sure, but he could have sworn he saw Jin wince slightly when Nekonom mentioned he was the only second year in the club. "If you have any questions about this club, just ask Jin-kun, okay?" Whatever reason Jin had winced before was now gone, replaced by the suave smile he'd worn ever since he entered the room as he nodded along with Nekonom's words. "Yeah, you can always count on me." Kurumu shuffled her chair close enough to Tsukun so she could latch on his right arm. "Tsukun, I'm not very good with this kind of flirty guy." "Well, I have to get going to a staff meeting," Nekonom said as she started walking out of the room. "Take care of the rest of the club proceedings, Jin-kun." "Okay, leave it to me." Nekonom waved to everyone in the club before closing the door and walking away. "I didn't think that Nekonom-sensei would be leaving already," Tsukun commented. I thought she would have been here longer." Naruto agreed. "Oh well, Jin-senpai doesn't seem like a bad person. Even if he is a bit of a flirt." Tsukun's eye twitched at the reminder of the club's president handing Kurumu a bouquet of flowers. He did feel a bit relieved though. Naruto's ability to sense negative emotions would have warned the blonde to any bad intentions Jin had towards them, after all. Jin straightened up and stood behind the desk that Nekonom had been behind when she was in the room before placing his hands on it. "Alright, first of all I'll give you an explanation of just what kind of club this is. The goal of the newspaper club is to publish the school newspaper. Most of your activities will be reporting on all kinds of things within the academy and putting them in the newspaper. We'll be put into dangerous situations time after time for the sake of reporting. I'll tell you right now, this ain't gonna be an easy ride. Once you've joined, you should prepare yourself." Moka shifted in her seat next to Naruto slightly as she turned her head to face the blonde. "He seems like someone we can depend on, right?" Naruto turned his head to meet the vampire's green eyes. "Yeah, I don't see why he wouldn't be," Naruto answered, missing the brief flicker of a grin that came upon Jin's face as he heard him. "I'm just messing with ya." All seriousness in Jin's voice from before was gone. "Let's have some fun without all the strict talk. This is our poster ad, let's put it up on the back wall." Jin pulled out 2 posters and showed it to his club members. On the 2 posters was a picture of Nekonom while it read, "If you have a chance, make sure to read the Yokai newspaper club." "Let's get to it then," Naruto muttered as he and the others got up from their seats and out from behind their desks. "Alright, you two, I believe Nekonom-sensei said that your names were Naruto-kun and Tsukun-kun, correct?" Jin asked, and both humans nodded to confirm his question. "Good. I want the 2 of you to grab a couple of chairs and take them to the back of the room for these 2 beautiful ladies to stand on. After that go and grab those piles of posters and bring them to the back of the room." Jin pointed his index finger to the window side of the room as a gesture for them to go pick up the 2 similar piles of posters. "And what are you going to do, senpai?" Naruto asked with a frown. "I'm going to make sure that Kurumu-san and Moka-san put the posters in the correct places." The club president waved a dismissive hand in the shinobi's direction, with the same smile still on his face. "Now get to it." Naruto sighed before he and Tsukun picked up the chairs they had been using and brought them to the back of the room, with the other 3 club members following them. Naruto and Tsukun placed the chairs in the places that Jin had instructed before they went to the piles of poster ads. "Alright," Jin said as he stood in front of the vampire and succubus as his smile widened slightly. "I want the 2 of you to put the first posters up there." He handed them the two posters that he'd been holding, and they took them before they got up on the chairs and reached up as far as they could to reach the place where their senior had told them they needed to place. Naruto and Tsukun reached the poster ads that were near the window at the front of the classroom and picked up a stack each. Tsukun took a more thorough look at them as they started to head back towards Jin, Kurumu and Moka. You know, these posters are kind of weird. Naruto studied the posters that he was carrying as well. Yeah, tell me about it. When the two humans came within 5 feet of the other 3 members in their club, they noticed their president bending down and looking up the 2 girls' skirts. Tsukun's eyes widened while Naruto's eye twitched at the sight. Please, not another pervert. Please. The ninja's pleas went completely ignored. Kurama snorted. It's as if you're just supposed to be surrounded by perverts. Your sensei, your godfather, that Tsunade Ami Hokage was one as well. Naruto's eye twitched. Don't remind me. Naruto stalked up to his senior and got in front of him, leaving Tsukun standing there not really knowing what to do in this kind of situation. Stop looking up their skirts. Gin stood back up with an arched eyebrow. What are you talking about? Don't play stupid. Naruto shot back, idly trying to decide if he should just dump Jin's conscious body in the middle of a woman's changing room so that he could feel the full payload of feminine fury. But then again, Jiraiya got beaten by women all the time and he kept peeping on them. Naruto just came to a realization, his godfather could very well have been masochistic. You were looking up their skirts for a free peep show. That's nonsense. His teeth sparkled when he smiled again. Naruto forcefully pushed away a small shiver. There's no way I'm that kind of guy who'd do something so lame. Moka and Kurumu noticed the interactions between their friend and senior, so they got off from the chairs they had been standing on and made their way over. What's going on? Oh, nothing much. Jin gave the approaching teenage girls a suave smile. It's just that this guy got an eyeful of your panties. Naruto blushed slightly at the thought while the succubus and vampire's faces heated up immensely and they both cried out in shock, anger and embarrassment. Hey. Now wait a minute. Tsukun came into the conversation as he too came up to the small group with a frown on his face. Naruto-san didn't peek up anyone's skirt, that was you, Jin-senpai. Yeah, we saw you looking up their skirts when we came back with the piles of posters. Naruto shuffled towards the other human, oddly feeling safer the more he got away from the two women. He didn't want to deal with two rage-filled women, especially not ones that could extend their claws to cut through things as tough as trees, while the other one could very well send him flying off the planet with a single punch. Okay, maybe that was a bit exaggerated, but that wasn't the point. Jin scoffed slightly as the vampire and succubus's murderous glares turned onto him. Stop lying, both of you. As I said before, I'd never do something so lame. Unlike Moka, who was glaring at both Jin and Naruto with murder in her eyes, a feat that surprised the shinobi seeing as she was usually sweet and somewhat timid, Kurumu decided to believe her destined one and stormed straight up to Jin's face and gave it a hard slap, leaving a red imprint of her hand there before she walked out of the room. Feeling oddly satisfied, but no longer wanting to do any club activities. Naruto had to forcefully push down an amused grin as he saw Jin's mouth drop open in shock at what Kurumu had done. It was almost comical to see what had been a rather smooth guy minutes before be in such a state. Moka huffed. I'm leaving. She said before storming out of the room. She hated perverts, period. She didn't know who to believe either, so she couldn't exactly put the blame on anyone. Well, I guess club activities are over for the day. Jin muttered, hiding a smirk. Sure, he got slapped by a rather angry succubus, but that was fine. He got to see under their skirts, after all. I shouldn't have gotten so angry back there. Moka murmured to herself as she stopped walking at the end of a hallway that had a large window for people to view outside. What if Naruto-kun really did peek though? Her face heated up before she grabbed the hem of her skirt up and took a look at what was under. What ones am I wearing today anyway? What are you doing? Hiya. Moka jumped and let go of the hem of her skirt. She calmed herself down when she saw the rosary around her neck jingling around with a red, slitted pupil in the middle. Oh, it's just you, Yura-chan. You shouldn't be doing something. Wait, what did you just call me? I called you Yura-chan. She smiled down at the rosary. I figured that we can't both be called Moka as it would be confusing. So I can refer to you as Yura and you can refer to me as Ahmed if you like. Yura let out an unladylike grunt of acknowledgement. Whatever, Ahmed. Anyway, as I was saying, what do you think you're doing looking under your skirt, in a school no less? Sorry. She murmured unsurely, feeling fairly small. Just don't do it again. The rosary settled down and one again rested upon the girl's chest. Anyway, you should be cautious around that Jin male. His scent smells as if he's hiding some strong power. Okay. I don't think I've ever seen Moka scent so angry like she was yesterday. Tsukun commented as he and Naruto walked towards the school at a sedate pace. They'd gone their separate ways the day before after Jin had said that club activities were over, but they'd met up just outside of the dorms like usual when they made the trek to the school. Naruto shrugged. She did have a reason to be angry, Jin-senpai did peek under her skirt after all. I'm just disappointed she didn't slap him like Kurumu-san did. Yeah, I guess she did have a reason, but why didn't she believe us? Well, the Jinchuriki scratched the back of his head a bit awkwardly as memories of rather painful punches from a pink-haired medic came to mind. I guess all reason and logic just goes out of the window when it comes to females and perverts. Sukun felt a sweat drop form at the back of his head at his friend's mumbling, glazed-over eyes and rather frightened expression. It was as if the blonde was remembering something that he'd rather keep at the back of his mind. Naruto-kun, Sukun-kun. Said humans stopped in their tracks and turned around to see Moka and Kurumu running up to them. The two girls stopped running just in front of them and caught their breath before straightening up. Morning. Naruto greeted simply. Moka fidgeted on the spot slightly. Look, she murmured before bowing slightly to both humans, surprising them both. I'm sorry for not believing either of you yesterday, I shouldn't have gotten so angry either. Again, I'm sorry. The shinobi sighed before placing his hand under Moka's chin, forcing her out of her bow to make her look up at him. A vampire such as yourself shouldn't be apologizing to anyone, let alone bowing, Moka-chan. When he'd asked the headmaster for basic information on the world he ended up in, the creepy man in a hood had done as requested, but had also given him quite a lot on the vampire race. Even though Naruto didn't understand completely as to why the headmaster had mainly focused on vampires, he pushed it aside, thinking that it was probably because Moka was a vampire herself. The vampire blushed slightly at the contact but smiled at him nonetheless. So my apology is accepted, right? Yeah. Apology accepted. Naruto replied before they all started to head towards the school again, making light chat along the way. Not too far away from the group of four was a certain president of the newspaper club watching the proceedings with a small frown on his face. He sighed in slight disappointment before noticing two girls walking and talking together, a brunette and a blonde. Putting on his usual charming smile, he headed over towards them to get their attention. Hey, excuse me, you girls. Seeing the both of them stop and give him their attention, he continued. Do the two of you have a sec? Sure, what is it? I'd just like to know something. His teeth sparkled and the girls' faces grew warmer before they gestured him to go on. I was just wondering if you knew whether or not that Naruto and Moka-san were dating. To go with his words, he pointed towards the four other people in his club, specifically a certain blonde and pinkette that were walking side by side. Well, I'm not really sure, the blonde girl started. But they do kind of match, don't they? I mean, Naruto-kun has good looks and I heard that he defeated the entire swimming club by using their captain as some sort of bat. And Moka-chan has enough beauty to even charm other women. Although, rumor has it that people have seen Moka-chan kissing Naruto-kun on the neck on multiple occasions, so they might be dating. The brunette finished. A kiss on the neck, is that what you said? The two girls raised their eyebrows at Jin's muttering before said newspaper club president pulled at his hair and shouted. No way. You've gotta be frickin' kidding me. Moka-san kisses Naruto-kun on the neck. Needless to say, Jin's sudden change in demeanor freaked the two girls out and they started to run away from him. You're an idiot. Naruto felt his eye twitch at the blunt statement as he leant against one of the walls in a hallway at Yokai Academy, with his arms crossed and eyes closed. I am not. Yes, you are. Why am I an idiot then? You left the door to your dorm room unlocked. Did not. Naruto protested, even though he couldn't actually remember whether he had locked it or not. You did. What if someone goes in there and goes through all your stuff? I don't have much in there, just my weapons and that pile of cash I won at that casino in Tokyo. Kurama's sweat dropped at his nonchalant reply. There's enough money in that pile of cash to make most people jealous. Before Naruto could retort, he heard the familiar voice of his club's president. Yo, Naruto-kun. Oh, hey. Naruto mumbled as Jin stopped in front of him, still annoyed at Kurama for his remarks. We'll be having club activities outside today, so Jin gestured for the blonde to follow him as he started walking down the hallway. Naruto heaved a sigh before following after his senior with his hands in his pockets. Jin had led the blonde into an alleyway in between the back of the school building and a much smaller building that Naruto could sense multiple yokai being inside of. Well, here we are, Naruto-kun. Jin said as he stopped walking. So, why are we at the back of the school building and where is everybody else? Naruto asked as he leaned against the wall to the school building. Like I said, this is where our club activities will be held today. As for everyone else, they'll be here soon, don't worry. Naruto shrugged at Jin's reply before the president of his club spoke up again. By the way, I'm sorry about yesterday. Moka-san got majorly pissed, didn't she? Naruto waved a dismissive hand in his senior's direction. Yeah, she was. It's not like she didn't have a reason to be angry though, you were looking up her skirt and all. Besides, I'm not the one you should be apologizing to. Ah, whatever. Jin pointed to a window that was connected to the building where the shinobi could sense multiple yokai inside of with his index finger. Why don't you take a look inside there, Naruto-kun? Why? You'll have to see for yourself, but it'll be interesting. So just take a look. Naruto frowned. I can sense other yokai inside of that building, senpai. He stopped leaning on the wall. Is there a particular reason that you want me to spy on whoever is in there? Jin grunted and turned away from the blonde, ignoring his question. Moka-san is even better than I heard. Naruto's eye twitched as his question was ignored, but he didn't comment and decided to let his senior finish his rambling. I really like her, you know. She's even got me falling in love at first sight. He pointed his thumb at himself. I'm serious when I say I'm gonna make Akashi Moka my woman. Your love interests really don't matter to me. Naruto said as he started to walk closer to his club's president. What does matter to me though, is the answer to my question, so look me in the eyes and answer me. Jin glanced at his junior out of the corner of his eyes, but he didn't have any time to regret it as he felt something push his conscious mind to the side when he saw the blonde's usually blue eyes turn blood red with the 3 tomo in them swirling around slowly. Jin's eyes had gained a dull light and he replied in a flat monotone. I wanted you to look in that window so I could take a picture of you doing that. What's in there? Inside of that building are girls form this school changing uniforms. Why did you want to take a picture of me peeking in there? So that I could show Moka-san what you were doing and make her hate you. Naruto sighed before grabbing Jin's collar. Alright, well I guess a punishment for you is in order. Naruto put his free hand into a single seal and his body puffed into smoke. When the smoke cleared, there was a girl in his place. She had the same blonde hair, but it was now long, straight and tied up into twin ponytails, and she was wearing the Yokai Academy girl's uniform. The girl smirked before walking up to the door of the changing rooms and gave it a few knocks, dragging Jin by his collar the entire way. Excuse me, I have a delivery. What is it? Who's out there? Just open the door and find out, the blonde-haired girl replied in an overly cheerful voice. There was some shuffling on the other side of the door before it opened to reveal a girl with shoulder-length brown hair and the same uniform as the blonde girl's own. Look, I found this guy peeping at all of you through that window. The blonde girl pointed to the same window that Jin had pointed to before. I think that all of you can give him the proper punishment, right? A wicked grin broke out onto the brunette's face as she grabbed Jin's collar and pulled him inside. Naruto released the game jutsu on his senior and Jin found himself blinking in an attempt to regain his bearings. Thanks for telling us. Don't worry, we'll take good care of him. Naruto grinned at the brunette's downright murderous tone before closing the door, relishing in the screams of pain that came from his senior seconds later. His body once again puffed into smoke to reveal the male version of the ninja before he started walking away. Ah, it's good to know that he's getting what he deserves. Night descended onto Yokai Academy with the moon hanging proudly in the sky, shining light down onto a certain vampire. Moka held onto the bars that were on the roof she was on as the soft breeze ruffled her hair slightly. So this is where you've been, Moka-san. The pincat turned around to see Jin, only his left eye was slightly bruised. It's a beautiful evening, don't you think? It's even a full moon tonight. Jin-senpai, what happened to you? She was slightly annoyed by his presence, having decided to believe what Naruto had said about Jin looking under her skirt, but that didn't mean she wasn't curious to know how his eye got bruised like that. Nothing, just a run-in with an old friend. He lied through his teeth with a charming smile as he walked closer to her. Anyway, what are you doing here out on your own? I like it up here, senpai. The vampire took a few steps away from Jin as she noticed an almost predatory gleam shine in his eyes. It was for naught, however, as the newspaper club's president suddenly appeared beside her and wrapped an arm around her shoulder. Well, I guess I'll keep you company tonight, then, huh? Jin smiled down at the shorter girl as she tried to squirm out of his grasp, but he just held her tighter. Let go. She strengthened her struggles, but Jin was surprisingly strong and managed to hold her in place. Why? Am I not holding you tenderly? No. You just felt me up. Jin's smile widened as the girl kept struggling before he pointed his thumb up at the moon and laughed lightly. Well, it's a full moon, isn't it? On the night of a full moon, I'm overcome with a feeling of power and I suddenly lose all control. He looked straight into Moka's eyes and leaned his face down towards hers. Just give in, Moka-san. When the moon is out, my urges just make me go crazy. I said, let go. Moka cried as she managed to shift her body into the position she wanted before she pushed her hands into his chest and sent him flying backwards into the wall of the stairwell that led up to the roof that they were on, creating a small cloud of dust that obscured her vision. A chuckle came from the dust cloud. It seems that the stories about you being a vampire are true, if that strength you have is anything to go by. That just makes me want you more and more. The cloud of dust cleared enough so that Moka could see a grinning Jin with a set of sharpened teeth. I told you before, didn't I? On nights with a full moon, my self-control weakens. Look, I'm telling ya, your door is unlocked. Naruto was standing outside of his dorm room door while his mouth had become a thin line. Want to make a bet on it? If I make a bet with you about it, the door will magically lock itself. Kurama deadpanned and Naruto's sweat dropped. Alright, well, here goes. His hand reached out and grasped the doorknob before pushing it open with ease, showing that it was in fact unlocked. Okay, you were right. It was unlocked. I told you it was unlocked. Naruto rolled his eyes at the Biju's triumphant tone before he stiffened. This feels like Jin-senpai's yoki. He murmured before closing his eyes in order to concentrate on his sensing abilities. With his full concentration set on just sensing a single area, he was able to detect Jin's yoki rising at a rapid rate, and his senior was right next to Moka. Shit, not good. He rushed outside of his room, slammed the door and sprinted in the direction where he felt his senior's yoki. You forgot to lock the door again, you idiot. Senpai. Moka murmured apprehensively as the second year's body started to transform with yoki flaring around him. His hands grew claws and gained fur as well as his face, which turned into a canine-like snout, and his body became more bulky overall. Under the full moon, I just get so excited I can't control myself. The werewolf bellowed. I'll make you my woman, Akashi Moka, if not willingly, then I'll take you by force. No, I don't want to. Moka flinched away and closed her eyes as Jin's figure towered over her before he lashed out at her with his claws. She didn't even react when someone's arms wrapped around her waist. She did, however, react when she didn't feel Jin's claws connect with her body. She opened her eyes to find herself being held bridal style in a certain blonde shinobi's arms on the other side of the roof. You. Jin growled. Naruto ignored him. Hey, Moka-chan. He greeted casually as he set the blushing girl back on her own 2 feet and picked up a tri-pronged kunai out of the ground before placing it in his pocket. I didn't know that you and Jin-senpai hung out. Wah? She blinked a few times at him. We're not hanging out. Don't worry, I didn't think you were either. He admitted before turning his full attention on his senior. What is he? Remembering that the blonde in front of her was a human and wouldn't know what Jin was, she told him. He's a werewolf, their main strength is speed, and their race is said to be on par with us vampires. So don't take him lightly, Naruto-kun. How dare you get in the way of our special moment? Jin snarled. You're speaking as if I'll be fighting him, Moka-chan. Naruto said before reached out and grasping her rosary, completely ignoring the werewolf. I believe that everyone deserves a chance to protect themselves. You don't mind, do you? Moka shook her head with a smile, feeling grateful that she wasn't going to be useless. No, I don't mind. With those words uttered, Naruto pulled the rosary off with a flick of his wrist. Yoki exploded from Moka's body as her features started to change. Her eyes became red and slitted, her hair became silver, her hips and bust size increased, and her expression became more stern. So this is Moka-san's true form? Jin grinned at the sight of the vampire, his sharpened teeth glinting under the moonlight. You're still beautiful even after transforming, Akashi Moka. He declared before leaping head-on at Moka. I'll defeat you and make you my woman. That'll never happen. Moka sneered before thrusting her arm forwards in an attempt to impale the second year, only for said werewolf to disappear from sight, shocking her at his sped. Naruto's eyes were wider than usual, showing his surprise at how fast the werewolf had moved. Moka-chan sure wasn't joking when she said that werewolves were fast. What are you looking over there for? Jin's voice reached Moka's ears, and she spun around to see the werewolf standing on top of the stairwell with his arms crossed. You know, you should just give up, Moka-san. The newspaper club's president leaped at her again. You have no chance at defeating me. His body became a blur as he sped around the rooftop, confusing the powerful vampire. Especially not while I'm under the full moon. Even Naruto, who had a lot of experience in fighting opponents who could move at extremely high speeds, was having trouble following his senior with his eyes. Granted, if he was using Senjutsu, his Sharingan or Kurama's chakra, then he'd easily be able to locate and pinpoint Jin's movements, but that wasn't the case right now. I can barely even see him move. Moka gritted her teeth together before she noticed a sudden decrease in the werewolf's speed. Jin slashed his claw at Moka once again, but unlike last time when Naruto had saved her, Moka was able to see it coming and grabbed the second year's furry wrist tightly. Wah. He muttered in shock before looking up at the sky, or more specifically, the moon, only to see it covered by the clouds. Oh crap. I can't use my full powers when the moon is hidden behind the clouds like that. Naruto dragged his hand down his face and sighed. You've got to be kidding me. The low growl rumbled out from Moka's throat as she shifted her right foot behind her. Do you really think that someone like yourself would actually be suitable to be with me? Of course I do. Jin barked back before wincing slightly as Moka increased the pressure of her grip on his wrist. Wait a minute, I'm not done yet. I can still defeat you even without the help of the Mo. Before the second year could even finish his sentence, Moka's right leg came forward at a fast pace and slammed into the side of Jin's head, sending the werewolf rocketing away from his position until he went through the bars that were on the rooftop, letting him freefall straight towards the unforgiving ground. That was the wrong answer. Someone like you wouldn't be suitable to be with me in 1,000 years. Know your place. She grunted and crossed her arms before turning to face Naruto, who was walking up to her. Why did you call me out here? Surely you would have been able to defeat a weakling like that on your own. Yeah, I probably could have. Naruto shrugged as he stopped in front of the silver-haired vampire. I can't fight every battle though, and like I said, everyone deserves a chance to defend themselves. Besides that, I figured you'd probably want to get out of that seal sometimes, right? Moka kept up her stoic expression. Whether I want to be out of the seal or not doesn't matter. What does matter though, is if you keep on repeatedly removing the rosary, then it'll keep weakening until it finally breaks. I'll keep that in mind. Naruto handed back her rosary and she took it but didn't place it back on and instead looked at his neck expectantly. Payment? She reminded him. Naruto sighed before loosening his collar and tilting his head to the side. Right. I forgot. I swear to God Naruto, I'll kill you for doing this. Jin bellowed as he ran from a large group of Yokai Academy girls that were chasing him with murderous gleams in their eyes and an assortment of weapons in their hands. It had been a couple of days since the incident involving Jin trying to get Moka to be his woman, and in those days Naruto had informed his friends of what Jin had tried to do and that he was someone who peeked on girls when they were changing. So, with Moka and Kurumu firmly suggesting it, they ended up writing about Jin being a peeping Tom in their newspaper as their first job. Naruto watched his senior run away from the girls with obvious amusement in his eyes. Sukun was standing next to him with a stack of newspapers in hand and actually looked slightly concerned for the second year. You don't think those girls will kill him, do you? The black-haired human asked. Nah, they won't kill him, because if they do then they won't get to beat the crap out of him again. Naruto replied nonchalantly and the other human sweat dropped. Naruto and Sukun kept watching the scene unfold until the human who couldn't use chakra asked a question that had been on his mind. Naruto-san, you said that you could sense ill intentions, right? When Naruto nodded, he continued. Then why weren't you able to sense Jin's intentions towards Moka before the incident on the rooftop occurred? Jin-senpai's intentions weren't negative, per se. They were just fueled by his lust, and that is something that I can't sense nor do I ever want to. Sukun felt the sweat drop on the back of his head increase in size before he shook his head. We should probably get to handing these papers out, Naruto-san. Yeah, alright. We do have to make sure that every girl in this academy knows about senpai, after all. It had been a month since Naruto had even seen daylight. The compression sessions had gone fine, he could literally feel himself becoming stronger than ever, but like Tsunade had told him, the only people he had spoken to were the people compressing their knowledge into him. Currently, the blonde Jinchuriki was lying down on the bed he had been given in the underground base he was staying at with his hands intertwined behind his head as a makeshift pillow, despite there already being a pillow there. Hey, did you hear? A faint male voice came from the other side of his steel door, accompanied by the footsteps of two people. Naruto got up off of the bed and walked on the cold concrete ground over to the door and pressed his ear up against it so he could hear better. Hear about what? The second voice was also male, but it was slightly deeper than the first and held a gruff edge to it. Apparently one of the medical bases on the border of Kei's no Kuni and Kawa no Kuni was attacked. Which one of the Uchihas did it this time? No one knows yet, that's why Uchiha Sasuke was sent to investigate. Naruto's eyes widened as he heard this and he pressed his ear on the door more so he could hear better. Just that criminal. What are they thinking sending him on his own? Don't ask me, I've got no clue. Naruto clenched his fists as the sound of footsteps completely disappeared. Why would you go on your own, Sasuke? You know you're no match for either of them. Naruto muttered angrily before glaring at the door. That's it, I'm going too. There's no way that I'm letting you die like that. The two shinobi who had been walking near Naruto's room and speaking about the attack on the medical base stopped their walking and chatter as they felt the ground shake and heard an explosion occur behind them. Naruto grunted as he made his way through the smoke that had come into existence from the explosive notes he'd used on the door. They were really prepared to keep me locked up in here. He drawled sarcastically. They more than likely never thought you'd actually be trying to break out of here. Yeah, maybe. Naruto agreed before he noticed red light starting to flash inside the hallway he was in, accompanied by a loud beeping noise. That's just fantastic. Uzumaki Naruto. Get back inside your room. Do not attempt to resist, we will not hesitate to use force. Naruto glanced to his left to see the two ninja, one from Iwa and the other from Kumo, who had been walking down the hallway and talking to each other, glaring at him with kunai held firmly in their hands. This could be a decent time to test out some of my new skills, I suppose. He mused before turning fully to face the two shinobi. I'm not going back into my room. He met their glares with one of his own. Now move, or else you're going to be in a world of hurt. We have our orders, we're not letting you out of this base, so that the uchiha can get his hands on you. The Iwa shinobi declared, and Naruto recognized it as the voice which was deepest and held a gruff edge to it. Then you've brought this on yourselves. As soon as the words left Naruto's mouth, he quickly pulled out a kunai of his own from his weapons pouch on his thigh before he dashed forwards. Steel clashed against steel as Naruto's kunai slammed against the Kumo shinobi's own. The Iwa shinobi wasn't idle though, he lazed out with his own kunai straight towards Naruto's wrist, going for a quick disarm in hopes of stunning the blonde. Naruto easily saw it coming though, and his leg came up before it collided with the Iwa ninja's ribs, sending the man flying back. A slight buzzing sound drew Naruto's attention back to the Kumo shinobi he had his kunai up against. Sparks flew from the shinobi's kunai as it started to cut through the Jinchuriki's own like a knife through butter. Naruto let his grip on the kunai loose before grabbing the other ninja's wrist and twisting his opponent's entire body around so that his arm was held behind his back. The Iwa shinobi got up off the ground and suppressed a wince at how hard the kick had been before noticing the predicament his comrade had been placed in. Gritting his teeth together, the ninja ran though a few quick hand seals before slamming both of his hands on the ground. There was a slight rumbling sound before rock burst through the concrete walls, floor and roof around Naruto until it formed a box-like structure big enough to fit both him and the Kumo shinobi he had hostage. This won't keep him there forever, but it should buy us enough time until backup arrives. He murmured as he kept a steady flow of chakra going into his technique. His eyes widened in shock though when he heard a grinding sound. The sound got louder and louder until the hard rock that had encased Naruto and the Kumo shinobi exploded outwards, showering the immediate area in rubble. Naruto dumped the Kumo shinobi's unconscious body onto the ground before he patted himself down to get rid of any dust. Blood ran down the Kumo ninja's head from a small gash that he'd gotten when Naruto had slammed his head into the hard rock to knock him out. One down, one to go. The alarms were still blaring, and the red lights in the hallway hadn't dimmed in the slightest as the Iwa shinobi gulped and prepared himself for a one-on-one confrontation. You know, Naruto started as he began to slowly run through a set of hand seals. Ever since I learned this technique, I've wanted to use it on someone. I guess you're going to be my test subject of sorts. Naruto planted his right palm on the ground and kept his left hand in a ram seal. Almost immediately, a sealing array appeared where the blonde's palm was on the ground before a line of kanji stretched out from it at a fast pace in the direction of the Iwa shinobi. When the kanji were close to the shinobi, a similar sealing array appeared under the man and he found himself struggling to keep his eyes open, let alone stand on his two legs. What the? The Iwa ninja murmured quietly in surprise before his body went slack and collapsed onto the ground. Naruto smirked slightly to himself, only for it to drop from his face seconds later when he heard a familiar icy cold tone come from behind him. Uzumaki Naruto, you are defying orders and have harmed two ninja of this alliance. I hope you're prepared to face the consequences. So, what's everyone planning on doing this weekend? Moka asked curiously as the four Naruto, Sukun, Kurumu and herself sat at one of the tables outside near the cafeteria. Naruto and Moka were seated on one side of the table, while Tsukun and Kurumu were seated on the other side. Behind them was a trash can that had 3 empty instant ramen cups poking out of the top. There were other students seated at similar tables around them, speaking amongst their own group of friends. Oh yeah, it's Friday, isn't it? Naruto mused aloud, more as a statement than a question before he shrugged. Didn't have anything planned, really. What about the two of you, Sukun-kun, Kurumu-chan? Sukun took a gulp of water from the bottle he had in his hands. I was just going to relax. So I'm not really doing anything. I'll go wherever my destined one goes. Kurumu exclaimed cheerfully before latching onto the human's arm that wasn't occupied by holding the bottle of water, causing Tsukun's face to heat up. Great. Moka smiled widely as her green eyes sparkled with glee. Then we should do something fun this weekend. All 4 of us. Sure, but what? Naruto asked since he didn't really know what counted as doing something that would provide him with entertainment. Back in the elemental nations, the only things he really did that would count as entertainment was fight, train, eat, sleep and then fight some more. Not that he actually had a problem with fighting or anything, he actually enjoyed it. It gave him a chance to see how strong he was compared to others, the adrenaline rush that came with it was a nice touch, too. What about going to the human world for the weekend? Sukun asked, trying to contain the excitement he felt welling up inside of him at just the possibility of going back to his own world. That's a good suggestion. Naruto agreed, not noticing how Moka's smile had dimmed slightly. So long as we don't go to Tokyo, then that's fine with me. Why, what's wrong with Tokyo? Sukun asked with an arched eyebrow. Nothing's wrong with it. I've just been there already. Naruto replied dismissively. Moka frowned when she heard Naruto's words, remembering what he'd told her about the run-in he'd had a run-in with some yokai in Tokyo, but she decided not to comment on it. Alright, well there's other places in Japan. The human who couldn't use chakra trailed off when he saw Naruto shake his head. What is it? I was thinking of going to a place far away from Japan as a whole. A slight grin stretched itself across the blonde's face as he recalled a place that had been mentioned in class that went by the title of the entertainment capital of the world. Somewhere like Las Vegas in the USA. Sukun's mouth opened and closed in surprise at the statement that came from the blonde. Traveling overseas had always been something he'd wanted to do, but he and his family just never got around to it. Las Vegas? Kurumu murmured as she tilted her head to the side slightly, an intrigued look coming onto her face. Isn't it the place that's known as the entertainment capital of the world? Moka's interest peaked when she heard the supposed title of Las Vegas, while Naruto's grin grew slightly wider. Yeah, sure is. And a place like that has got to be fun, right? Well, yeah, but there's a couple of things that need to be spoken about first. Sukun said and everyone's heads turned to him. First of all, going overseas to a place like that would cost a lot of money that we unfortunately don't have. Don't worry about the money. Naruto's grin died down into a small smirk. I've got plenty of it, so that won't be a problem at all. Okay, but that's not the only thing either. There's a lot of organizing that needs to go into traveling that far. Like having a passport, buying tickets, buying accommodation and stuff like that. A small confused frown appeared on Naruto's face. What's a passport? A passport is basically something that has your identification and is used for international travel. Sukun answered. Shouldn't you know something like that, Naruto-san? The place where I grew up was isolated, I guess you could say. When the black-haired human nodded to show he understood, Naruto made a motion with his hand to tell him to go on. Anyway, keep going on with what we'll need. I'm serious about going to Vegas. Sukun nodded and leaned forward slightly, once again trying to contain the excitement he felt welling up inside of him. Well, that's really all we need. Just money, our own passports, a ticket for each of us, so we can catch a plane over there and organizing accommodation, and we can do all that over the internet. Sukun said before a frown came onto his face. But, it takes a while for you to receive a passport. I remember mine taking just over a week. Do you have your passport with you? Not on me right now, but it's in my dorm room. Sukun answered, even if he was confused by Naruto's question. Kachan told me to bring it with me when I came here so it would be there if I needed it. That's great then. A smirk once again found its way onto Naruto's face. Moka looked at him curiously. What are you going to do, Naruto-kun? Isn't it obvious? I'll make fake passports for all of us who don't have one using Tsukun's as a reference point. This is illegal, you know. Sukun commented as he handed over his passport to Naruto. As soon as the last class at the school had finished, Naruto had grabbed Tsukun's shoulder and used the Shunshin no Jutsu to get them to Tsukun's room so that the human could grab his passport and laptop before he used the same technique to get to his own room. Moka and Kurumu, on the other hand, had gone to find Nekonom to see if they were actually able to leave the academy. Naruto rolled his eyes as he took his friend's passport and walked over to his kitchen and laid the passport on the counter. That doesn't bother me. Besides, where I come from making fake identities and the like is basically an everyday occurrence. Sukun sighed before taking a seat on Naruto's futon and placing his laptop on his lap. He flipped it open and turned it on. So how are you going to make a fake passport anyway? With skill, of course. The black-haired human rolled his eyes at the ninja's answer before he started typing on his laptop to get a site up where he could look at prices for flights and accommodation in Vegas. How much are you willing to spend? I told you already, Tsukun, don't worry about the money. I have plenty of it, so go nuts if you want. Naruto said as he leaned over the counter and flipped through Tsukun's passport before he sensed two familiar signatures coming towards his room. Good, looks like they got an answer. I'm just saying, because the flights cost alone for all of us from Tokyo to Las Vegas is going to cost a lot. Tsukun looked over at his friend to see if there was any reaction from the teen, but the blonde just kept flipping through his passport, completely unconcerned with how much it would cost. He shrugged, if his friend was confident that he could pay, then who was he to say otherwise? So long as we don't spend much time in Tokyo then we should be fine. Naruto thought before closing Tsukun's passport as a clone exploded into existence beside him, gaining Tsukun's attention. Alright, let's see if I can actually do this, Naruto murmured as the clone was enveloped in a cloud of smoke. When the smoke died down, it revealed an exact replica of Tsukun's passport. Naruto picked it up and started to read through it. What was that? That black-haired human asked slowly as he gazed at Naruto with obvious surprise. I created a clone and had it transform into a copy of your passport, only with my information instead of yours. Naruto replied with a small grin as he closed a fake passport that he would be using before throwing it onto his futon. Take a look. Sukune picked it up and opened it to have a look. Wow, this is amazing, he muttered to himself as he saw that it might as well have been an official passport for his blonde friend. 3 knocks on the door brought the two boys' attention away from the passport before Naruto made his way over to it, already knowing who was there. Naruto opened the door and was greeted with the sight of 2 smiling teenage girls. We got permission to go. Moka beamed as Naruto moved to the side and let the 2 of them in. She didn't really like the idea of going to the human world, but spending the weekend at a city with the title of the entertainment capital of the world, she was finding it pretty hard not to be excited. Well, Nekonom-sensei told us we had to ask the headmaster, and he said that we were allowed to leave the academy for the weekend. Usually we would need a teacher to accompany us, but he said he'd make an exception. Naruto nodded at Moka as she and Kurumu both took a seat on his futon, with the succubus looking over at Tsukune's shoulder to see what he was doing. I doubt that the creepy headmaster made an exception for us without a reason, we'll probably have to do something for him at some point in time. Naruto thought with a silent sigh. Okay. Sukune announced, a small smile coming onto his face as he found what he was looking for. I found us some flights that are leaving Tokyo at 8 tonight, as well as some accommodation in Las Vegas at a hotel called the Monte Carlo. Wait a minute, don't we need a credit card to do stuff like this online? Kurumu asked, getting a nod from Tsukune. Yeah, I was just going to use my credit card details to pay for it, then have Naruto-san give me however much it costs in cash. The black-haired human explained before glancing at the ninja. That's okay, right, Naruto-san? Yeah, that's fine. Naruto answered and Tsukune started typing on the laptop again. Moka-chan, Kurumu-san, you two should probably go pack for the trip, we'll be leaving to catch the plane soon. Oh, right. Packing. Moka exclaimed before jumping up from Naruto's futon, grabbing Kurumu's arm and dashing out the door. Well said, succubus yelled out a yahoo. Well, someone's excited. Naruto remarked before shaking his head and walking over to where his backpack lay in the corner. He unzipped it before plunging his entire arm in there, something that shouldn't have been physically possible, considering the length difference between his arm and the backpack. Well, he stuck his tongue out to the side and furrowed his eyebrows together in concentration as he searched. Tsukune looked over to see what he was doing and blinked a few times before rubbing his eyes to make sure he was actually seeing what was in front of him. Naruto-san, what are you doing? And how did you fit your entire arm in that backpack? Just a moment. There was some sounds of metal clashing against metal as Naruto rummaged through his backpack. It was a minute later when Naruto stopped looking as a triumphant grin broke out onto his face before he reached his arm out holding an ink bottle and a brush. Got it. An ink bottle and a brush? Not just any ink bottle and brush, Tsukune. Naruto said as he stood back up and walked over to the kitchen counter, taking his blazer off and placing said piece of clothing on it. Okay, maybe they are just any ink bottle and brush, but that's not the point. Here, come watch. Tsukune took his laptop off of his lap before walking over to the blonde, who had opened the ink on the counter, opened it and dabbed the brush in it. What are you going to do? Just watch. Naruto murmured in reply before he placed his left forearm on the counter and started to draw numerous kanji just above his wrist with precision and in rapid succession. He lifted his forearm up and showed it to the other human once he had finished his task. Ta-da. What? 1 second. Naruto once again went over to his backpack and started rummaging through it until he pulled out a black pouch-like object. The shinobi opened his weapons pouch before bringing out a couple of kunai. He held the weapons over his wrist before sending some chakra into the seal he'd drawn up just above his wrist and they disappeared in a small plume of smoke. What was that? Tsukune asked with widened eyes as the smoke cleared to show that the weapons Naruto had been holding were nowhere to be seen. That is a storage seal. Naruto placed his pouch next to the ink. It allows me or anyone who knows how to use one to seal an assortment of items, like what I did with those kunai. Pretty basic thing where I come from. Why are you drawing them? So I can seal all my weapons in there, don't want to risk being searched only to have them find I have them on me. Naruto answered as another plume of smoke erupted next to the blonde and another replica of the Jinchuriki was revealed before Naruto placed his right forearm on the kitchen counter while the clone grabbed the brush and started repeating what Naruto had done before. And right with your left hand. Not at all. Once they had all finished getting packed, all 4 of them had left the academy grounds and made their way towards the place where Naruto and Tsukune had been dropped off on the first day, right next to the scarecrow that had a pumpkin for a head. It had only been 5 minutes since they'd started to wait for the bus and Naruto had already started pacing. He was never a patient person. How long does this guy want to take? He grunted to himself before leaning on a nearby dead-looking tree and crossing his arms. He shouldn't be long, Naruto-kun. Moka sent him a reassuring smile. The headmaster told us that the bus driver wouldn't arrive long after we got here. That creepy old man sure did. Kurumu added in. How do you know he's an old man? I mean, sure, he's creepy and all, but that doesn't mean that he's old. The succubus crossed her arms under her fleece and glanced at the blonde before replying to his question. I just get that feeling when I'm around him, you know the one. No, not really. Naruto deadpanned. Kurumu huffed while Tsukun decided to step in. Do we really need to be discussing the headmaster's age right now? The bus will be here soon. As if on cue, the sound of an engine reached all of their ears as the bus stopped right near where they were all waiting. The doors on the vehicle swung open to reveal a familiar figure with glowing eyes and a cigar in mouth. Well, get on then. He said, and the students readily obeyed before he chuckled in an eerily creepy way that made Tsukun feel an all too familiar shiver run up his spine. So you're all off to Vegas, huh? Hope you've all brushed up on your English. Naruto placed his backpack on one of the seats before sitting down. Nothing to worry about, I'm confident that I'll be able to communicate with others over there, and if not then I'm sure that Moka-chan will be able to, her grades are a lot better than mine, you know. Moka felt her face warm up slightly at the praise as she sat down while placing the bag full of her belongings down next to her. Now that the initial excitement of going to Las Vegas had worn off, she found herself feeling apprehensive at the idea of going to the human world. She swallowed it though, remembering how the others, Tsukun especially, were ecstatic at the prospect of going to the human world. Well, buckle up and prepare yourselves then, Vegas can be quite fun. The way the bus driver put emphasis on the word fun made Tsukun feel uncomfortable, the smirk on his face wasn't helping any either. He shook it off though when he heard Naruto's slightly annoyed voice reach his ears. There's nothing to buckle up with. Naruto let out a content sigh as he relaxed in the cream-colored leather chair on the aeroplane that he and the others were on. Sitting on his left and right next to the window, Tsukun let a small smile cross his face as he got himself comfortable in his chair. Moka and Kurumu were on the duo of chairs in front of them quietly chatting with each other. After the bus driver had dropped them off at the airport, Tsukun had led them all through the airport until they'd heard over some loudspeakers, as Tsukun had called them, that their flight was boarding people. The currently black-haired, brown-eyed and whiskerless Naruto passed over his, along with his 2 children and nephews' passports, to show the woman in uniform, who needed to confirm their identities. Oh no. The lady mused aloud before glancing at the 4. It says that you're this young man's uncle, and those 2 are your daughters. She eyed Moka and Kurumu suspiciously, taking note of the very different hair colors, as the 2 girls played along and nodded vigorously, while Tsukun gulped slightly and hoped what they were doing wouldn't come to bite him in the ass. Yes, that's correct. Naruto gave the woman a smile. So, can we get on board the plane now? When they had boarded the plane though, Naruto had felt several yokai signatures coming from various different locations around the airport, but he figured that they were just some yokai trying to coexist with humans while in their human form. Now that he thought about it, he could actually sense a few fairly strong yokai signature on board the plane in the first class room with them, to be precise. It wasn't strong enough to get him overly worried, but it was enough for him to make sure to pay attention to it as much as he could, while trying to not make it obvious. The sealed side of Moka had sensed them as well, she wasn't very concerned though. If anything, Yura was confident that Naruto would at least be able to pull the rosary off before any of them made a move. I'm glad you got us some first-class seats, nephew. Naruto said as he adjusted his seat until he was in a lying down position. Yeah, so am I. The black-haired human agreed, ignoring the nephew comment as Naruto was still disguised as his uncle. We got lucky though, there was only 7 first-class tickets left when I bought these seats online. Naruto hummed in response as he put his hands behind his head as a makeshift pillow. How long will this flight take anyway? Just under 12 hours, so you better get comfortable. The shinobi let out what sounded like an annoyed grunt at Tsukun's answer. What is it? I don't know if I'll be able to stay still that long with nothing to do. There is stuff to do though. Tsukun said, gaining Naruto's full attention. We're allowed to watch movies. What type of movies? Naruto asked as he sat up, his interest in the matter rising. The only movie he'd actually seen was Koyuki's. In response, Tsukun leaned over and grabbed something that was on the back of the chair in front of Naruto and pulled until part of the chair came down, revealing a television built into the chair, along with a remote hung next to it. Take a look. It had been around 10 hours since the plane had started flying from Tokyo to Japan. The 4 were currently asleep in their chairs, which had been adjusted so that they could lay down and relax, but just because Naruto was asleep didn't mean that a certain massive chakra was. There was still those strong yokai signature in the first class room to be cautious of, after all. Damn brat getting me to do such trivial tasks. Kurama grumbled with obvious annoyance as he kept his senses open for any ill intentions focused on his partner. No, not like that. Yes, that Wano, that's it. Naruto let out a sigh in his sleep before his eyes started to slowly open when he felt a few taps on his shoulder. Blinking a few times to get rid of the blurriness, the ninja peered upwards to see a female flight attendant standing there with what seemed to be a small amused smile on her admittedly pretty face. Yeah. I'm sorry for waking you, sir. She apologized even though she probably didn't actually care whether or not he was asleep. But that man over there has kindly asked me to wake you up. He says that he wanted to speak with you. Naruto followed where her hand had gestured to see a man that looked to be a few years older than him sitting in a chair on the opposite side of the room. The man in question had short blonde hair that had spikes sticking up here and there, along with a set of light blue eyes and a rather lazy expression. He wore loose-fitting black pants and a black leather jacket. When the man sent Naruto a smirk, he was able to make out some very sharp-looking teeth. Thanks. Naruto said, and the flight attendant nodded before walking away. He got up out of his chair and cracked his back before letting out a yawn and trudging over to the man who had asked for his presence, idly taking note of the fact that he was one of the yokai in the first-class room. You wanted to speak with me? Sure did. The man replied in accent that was definitely not Japanese as he stood from his chair. Not here though, follow me. Naruto listened to him and followed the yokai out of the first-class room until they were both stood in a small hallway with multiple carts with food and drinks on them, right next to the emergency door. There were 2 doors on either end of the hallway on the opposite side that they came in which led to the lower class areas. What did you want to speak about then? Not much, really. The man replied, and the Jinchuriki could have sworn he saw lightning spark in his eyes. Just about how you pose a threat to our organization and that I was sent here to kill you. I'm Kia, by the way. Naruto actually blinked at the casual tone the sentence was delivered in. And what organization is that? Kia arched an eyebrow at the human. Wow, you're actually not freaking out. Usually people, humans especially, would get worried or at least nervous if someone told them that. I've been in a few life-threatening situations before. Naruto shrugged nonchalantly as he leaned on the emergency door. You didn't answer my question though. Sure, I'll tell. Do you think I'm stupid or something? Kia deadpanned. The only thing you need to know is that you could get in the way of our plans and you need to go the afterlife. To go along with his words, the yokai lashed out with his right leg straight at the ninja's stomach. Naruto easily saw it coming though and managed to block it with his hand, but he wasn't expecting there to be such force behind it and as a result, he was sent straight through the emergency door and out into the open air while his transformation forcefully ended. He grunted and shook his hand to get rid of the numbness. What was that? Not only was it a hard kick, but it felt as if my hand just got shocked by electricity. The sound of Naruto being sent through the emergency door managed to wake everyone who was asleep in the first-class room and there were several groans of protest. What was that? Kuruma mumbled as she rubbed her eyes and yawned in her seat. Sitting to the succubus's right, Moka stretched in her own seat. I don't know, Kuruma-chan. What about you, Sukun-kun, Naruto-kun? Moka got on her knees on the chair and turned around to face the 2 boys, only to find one of the people she'd questioned covering his mouth to stifle a yawn. Sukun blinked a few times and took in his surroundings. Where's Naruto-san? The aforementioned blonde was currently plummeting towards the ocean and trying to figure a way to actually survive. I so wish I could fly right now. Kurama snorted, sending the water that surrounded him rippling away from his giant form. Of course you do. That would make getting out of this situation easy. Naruto was about to respond to the biju, but was interrupted by a rather smug voice that made him twitch. You look different. The shinobi tilted his head to the side to see Kia, only his arms had been replaced golden-colored wings with feathers. Ah well, it doesn't matter. So, you having fun falling to your death? Not really, maybe you can make it more entertaining. Naruto shot back before grunting and twisting his body, attempting to land a kick to the yokai's face, but Kia didn't have wings just for show, and he used them to maneuver out of the way easily enough. Can't fly? That's too bad for you. Some more lightning sparked behind Kia's light blue eyes as his body started to bulge and his yoki began to rise. Kia's body grew in size until it was easily the size of the plane itself, while golden feathers started to form from the wings that he had until he was covered in them, while his feet turned into talons. A beak appeared atop the yokai's head before it slid down onto the front of his face, as if he was wearing a mask. The beak opened in a malicious grin that showed numerous amounts sharp teeth. Maybe if you were a Thunderbird like I am instead of a human, you'd have had a better chance of surviving. You're speaking as if I'm already dead. The shinobi gritted his teeth together as he glared at the yokai. You might as well be. Dark clouds formed around, below and above them, as the Thunderbird flared his yoki into the area. Can't do much in that position, can you? Lightning once again sparked behind Kia's eyes, only this time it seemed to keep sparking until the twin orbs glowed and shot a bolt of lightning straight towards Naruto. "Excuse me," Sukun said as he tapped a flight attendant on the shoulder, gaining the woman's attention as she turned around to face him. They were still in the first class room, and the female in front of him was carrying a tray of drinks. "I was wondering if you'd seen my uncle. He has black spiky hair and brown eyes." "Yes, I did see him, sir." The flight attendant smiled slightly at the black-haired human. "One of the other passengers in first class wanted to speak with him, they went through that door." She pointed to said door which was white in color. "Alright, thanks." Sukun smiled at the flight attendant, getting a nod in return, before he along with Moka and Kurumu walked towards the door that the woman had pointed to. Several people in the first class room who had been pretending to be asleep saw them heading towards the door and they threw the blankets that had been on them away before they sprinted to the trio's destination and stood in front of it. There was 4 of them in total, all with light blue eyes and short blonde hair with spikes here and there. They were wearing black loose-fitting pants and leather jackets. Sukun glanced between his 2 friends and the 4 identical and stoic-looking men nervously, while Kurumu narrowed her eyes and a red slitted pupil appeared on Moka's rosary. "Quadruplets," the human thought before shaking it off. "Can we help you? We won't let you through this door," the one on the far left declared as the other 3 nodded simultaneously, while the one on the far right continued. "We won't let you get in the way." "That in the way of what?" Sukun asked in confusion. "Sukun-kun, they're yokai," Moka informed, having heard her inner self tell her the same thing, and the aforementioned human took a step back. "What have you done with Naruto-kun?" "We haven't done." The one on the far left stopped in the middle of his sentence and narrowed his eyes when he saw the flight attendant slowly making her way towards the door one step at a time. "And what do you think you're doing?" he sneered. Lightning sparked behind his eyes before the light blue orbs glowed and a bolt of lightning soared straight for the woman. The flight attendant didn't even get a chance to look shocked as she was hit dead on by the yokai's attack. A certain Thunderbird's expression was annoyed as he stared at the shinobi who was now falling towards him from above with a tri-pronged kunai in hand. "Why bother dragging this out? You're going to die anyway, so just stay still and let me zap you a little." "A little?" Naruto deadpanned. "If you had have hit with that attack before, I would have gotten zapped a lot more than a little." "Details, details." Kia scoffed before flying straight towards the ninja at impressive speeds with his beak opened. "Maybe you'll be a decent snack." Thunder crackled loudly in the background with each beat of the yokai's wings. "Sorry, I've been eaten a couple of times before and it's not a pleasant experience, so I'm not going to be your snack." Naruto shot back as his enemy got closer and closer. Time seemed to slow down for Naruto while he glared straight into Kia's light blue eyes while the sharp teeth he had within his beak glinted almost hungrily. Finally, after what seemed like an age, the Thunderbird was close enough that if Naruto reached out he'd be able to touch it. And that's what he did. Time returned to normal as Naruto channeled chakra into his hand before he sent it forwards and he attached it on top of the Kia's beak while keeping his body away from the sharp teeth that were dead set on chewing him to bits. "You pest." Naruto ignored the way the corner of the beak curled up into a sneer and flipped his body around until he was standing on top of Kia's head while said Thunderbird thrashed around and flew through the dark clouds in an attempt to get him off. Despite the fact that he had chakra running to his feet, the blonde still found it difficult to stay in the one spot with all of the attempts that Kia was making to get him off. "Stop moving around, you overgrown bird." If anything, the insult only served to anger the Thunderbird as it put more effort into its attempts to get the human off. Reddish-orange pigmentations formed around Naruto's eyes, his pupils became horizontal and bar-like, while his irides became yellow. He put his fingers in a cross-shaped seal, and 4 bursts of smoke erupted around him, 2 on each side of his body. Already knowing what to do, the 2 clones on the left ran down the left wing, while the 2 on the right did the same with their side. The original Naruto, however, simply placed his hand back on Kia's head, only with different intentions. When he pulled his hand away, a seal could be seen proudly planted there. Rain started to pour as more thunder rumbled around them, only this time Naruto was able to catch a quick flash of blue light up the dark area. "Dead off." The Thunderbird let out a screech as it turned upside down, hoping that Naruto would fall off. Seeing that the annoying human was remaining in the same spot, Kia started to spin rapidly with his wings curling towards his body to provide himself with more rotation. The clones and the original Naruto desperately held on, with the former using the physical strength granted by natural chakra to hold onto the wing they were near, while the latter of the 2 didn't have anything to grab onto in time and was sent soaring away into the dark clouds. Kia didn't have much time to celebrate as he had yet to rid himself of the clones that were still tightly holding onto his wings. With a grunt, the Thunderbird stopped spinning and started to rocket upwards. All of the clones simultaneously grinned when they saw this. Well, the plan was to force him to fly up, but it seems as if he's doing it on his own. They mused just as their creator reappeared on top of Kia's head at the point where he had placed the seal before, holding the Thunderbird's feathers as if they were his lifeline with chakra running through his feet. They broke through the top of the dark and stormy clouds. Because Naruto was using natural chakra, he was able to sense where the plane was by searching for the multiple life forces that were aboard the aircraft with ease. Looking in the direction he felt the life forces coming from, he was greeted with the sight of the plane flying a fair distance away from him. He was about to smile in satisfaction, but stopped himself when he saw a bolt of lightning tear through the side of the aircraft, right where first class was located. More of these guys. Guess I was wrong to think that Kia would be on his own. Two clones burst into existence beside him as the four on each of Kia's wings dispersed. The two clones grabbed one of his arms on either side of his body, while he himself took a few steps back. With all of the physical strength granted to his clones, his body was basically a paperweight to them, so it wasn't much of a surprise that they managed to launch his body through the air straight towards the plane, without having to put all their strength into it. The dust cloud that had formed and blocked their view of what happened slowly dissipated until it was completely gone. The female flight attendant's body was leant up against a wall, only there was a large hole in her chest, showing off some of what was left of her ribcage and internal organs, while blood had splattered against the wall. Her lifeless eyes bored directly into Tsukun's brown aghast ones, before her entire body seemed to slump and collapse onto the floor, where a pool of blood started to form. Kurumu seemed indifferent to the flight attendant's death. Moka didn't really know whether to feel sorry for the woman or not care at all. Humans still weren't her favorite race, after all. Tsukun though was horrified as he stared at the rather gory scene with wide eyes. How could they do that? How could they just kill a living being like it didn't even matter? He closed his eyes tightly and clenched his fists by his sides. Why? What did she ever do wrong? Before the human could think more on the matter, there was a loud thunk accompanied by the appearance of a sizable dent in the ceiling. A poof soon followed while the rosary around Moka's neck lifted itself and the red-slitted pupil seemed to stare at the dent with slight interest. Stupid humans. The yokai who'd shot lightning from his eyes muttered to himself with a roll of his eyes. What was that? Tsukun snapped, sounding angry and confused. Before he could get a reply, one of the nearby windows right next to the corpse smashed open and a carefree-looking shinobi stepped in through the small hole with some trouble. Yo. One hand was in his left pocket while his opposite hand was lifted in the air as a wave, all the while completely ignoring the woman's unmoving body. Naruto-kun. Said blonde smiled at the relieved-looking Moka, Kurumu and the confused, angry and relieved Tsukun. I'm just a clone, the boss is up there fighting some giant lightning bird. A Thunderbird he called himself, I think. He blinked when he saw the four yokai blocking the doorway towards the hallway where Kia had introduced the original to free-falling. Who the hell are they? So this part ends here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, so quickly like this video for second part of this series. And comment down below your thoughts about this series. And now it's time for me to go, bye.